Okay, so I've got everything ready to go. I've got the screws, the grub screw nut, and the pinion gear, and of course this motor plate. You can see here it shows that they want you to bend the wires basically back on themselves. So we're going to do that. I'll bend that one that way and that one that way. So essentially it's exactly how they want it for whatever reason. We'll see. And then of course it's saying that we need to put the motor plate on and align the holes. Where are we here? Holes are aligned. And then you can see here that it's saying that we've got to put the pinion on, but it needs to be 22.5 millimeters from the motor plate back. So if we just put this on for now and make sure it's on the flat of it, I'm just going to put the grub screw, actually I might just put the grub screw in now just to start it. That way we're not losing it. And then we'll put that on. And I'm just going to start it so that I've got something to work with. And it's showing that it should be 22.5 millimeters, but you can see that they're showing you a little bit of a gap. Something like that, for example. And in some ways, actually, when you look at the picture, if I have that more or less in place, it's exactly where it should be. So I'm actually going to lock it down right where it is for now, and let's just see. So let me just tighten this up. There. And if I put that back down on the picture again, nice and flat, pretty much where it's supposed to be. Don't mind that. So that works for me, and it's nice and tight. So now we'll be able to put on this black piece onto the motor and lock it in. And you can see that the nuts themselves actually go into these locations. Let me just get, there we go, one there. Okay, so now that we have the nuts into the plastic piece, we're going to grab the motor. And one thing to make note of, because sometimes this, it's different in each kit, but you see how you can see the opening. There's the opening. You could use that opening, but you see how there's these two here? What I find is there's always a reason why they want it the other way. Because if it was meant to be this way, you'd see these notch pieces on this side. So we're going to put it on this way. And you can also see that since those nuts are in, they're actually going to get covered and not attached to anything, because these two screws here are going straight from the plastic and into the motor itself. The nuts are hidden behind there. So we just need to line it up, and then we're going to put the screw in, and I'll just sort of screw it in temporarily. Put the other one, just make sure the alignment's correct. It is. Put the other one in. There we go. So it's in, but I'm just going to tighten it up. And I just sort of go back and forth, making sure that it actually is tight. It's looking good. Okay, so there we go. There is the motor and the motor mount. But you see the nuts that are in behind there, that's what's going to attach it to the chassis. So if we take a sort of a look at this, the motor will go on here and then get attached. And you see how the pinion gear is close to where we needed it to be. So it's actually coming out pretty correct. So we'll move on to step 28, and more than likely we're actually going to be attaching the motor to this gearbox. Okay, so moving on to step 28, we are in fact going to be attaching the motor. So what we need to do is we grab this piece, C12, and we've got the 2 screws, and we're going to screw those into the gearbox and into this black piece here. So again, I'm going to have this up the way that it is. And what we'll do is we will take one of the screws, put it through, and put it through here. I just got to make sure that it's getting into that. Yes. And I'll just screw this in temporarily, or at least I won't tighten it. Take the other one, put it through, make sure that it fits. Just sort of tightening it, but not too much. So there we go. There is the motor on the Beetle. So the next thing is to connect the motor to the cables coming out of the speed controller. Now, what I have found even in the Grasshopper, make this easy, it is green to blue and yellow to yellow. This one, the orange cable, is not going to be used. This would be if we had a brushless motor. So for this one, I'm just going to kind of tuck it away because it's not being used at all. So I'll just tuck it inside. So this is how it'll be for the wires: blue to green and yellow to yellow. So that is the setup. So now the other piece that we need to do according to this is we've got the nylon straps, which are then going to attach to the dust cover through there. So I'll just go ahead and do that, and then we can move on to step 29, which is attaching the rear body mounts. So with step 29, we're on to attaching the rear body mounts, and I've got all of the pieces here ready to go. And then I've pulled together all of the screws and the flange nuts. So we will start putting this together. So I think the first thing we'll do is we'll grab E2, which is this one here, and we will now pull this one in. We can see that for this one we're going to need one of the longer screws for the flange nut. So we'll stick this in through here. Yeah, and then grab one of the flange nuts Stick that in there. Grab the screwdriver. Screw this in. And grab the flange nut as well. And spin that on. So now let's put the other side on. So we're going to grab the other part, and you'll notice that one side has one bump, this side has two, so just make sure you've got that on right. And then we'll put this in, and we'll screw it in. What's interesting is it actually it catches as it goes through. It's not like it's completely attached with the flange nut, because you can feel it going all the way through. It's not grabbing, but the hole is actually quite loose. So then when we put the flange nut on, I'll just spin it on a bit. I'll put this, we'll use this, and then so we know that's now tight. And I'm just going to do one last little bit on this side. So now we put the brace on, and you can see that we had one dot there and two on that side. Well, you can see that the brace has the same setup. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this on, and you can feel that there's a bit of a push, but you can see that those knobs go right through. So this is going to act as that added brace. These cables are out of the way. They're not affecting anything. And then we take one of the body mounts, and it's got kind of a lip on one side, but it will attach to there. And then all we need to do now is attach this to the mounts, and the brace is going to get attached along with the mount. Just make sure we've got the other one in there. And I can feel it grab quite nicely on that side. And same with that. So you can see that the brace is getting pulled in by the little lip that's on this one, and you can see the little lip that was on the other side, this bit right here. So it's getting pulled tight, and then those are pulling the whole thing together. So it's actually locking in the brace at the same time. So I'll go ahead and put on the other side, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so here we are, step 30, and it's attaching the rear bumper. I don't know why they call this a bumper. To my mind, it's more or less just a nameplate. It's not going to do a whole lot if you hit anything, because the body's technically hanging out about the same level. But whatever, it is what it is. But we're also going to be attaching these, which are for helping keep the battery in place. We'll attach that, and we will put on the sticker. So there are the parts that are needed for this. I'm just going to go ahead and put on the sticker and put those pieces in. It's pretty self-explanatory, so I don't think it needs a complete tutorial on that. So I'm just going to put this all together and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so there is the finished step. I've put the sticker on, the bumper is on, and we've put the side pieces on for the battery pieces. So that step is finished, and now we'll move on to step 31, which is attaching the antenna pipe. So as you can see for step 31, they actually are giving you a choice, and it's sort of dependent upon which receiver you have, because some have a longer wire than others. So one choice is putting it at the side, which is typically what the Frog is set up to be, or run the cable up to a back piece on the back of the car, attaching it to the bumper. Well, I'm not keen on how it's attached on the Frog, but it works, but the wire itself is so short, I've decided to do it on the back. And I just as a whole prefer the look. This may not work in, it may work in theory, it may not work in practice. I'm not sure yet. But I prefer the aerial being at the back because on real cars you see that more. But because this is so short, I may figure out another way of doing it and not using this at all. But we'll see once I get a little closer with the build. So that part really is finished. So we're going to move on to step 32, which is the wheels. And I always think this is a fun part because once you start working on the wheels, you know you're getting close to finishing the car. So I'll go ahead and put the wheels into the tires. So if you remember from the start, we discovered that this step is wrong, and they actually put in a correction notice. So if we were to work on the left wheels first, you'll notice here that it's showing the left wheel, and there's the rim for the front, and then they show the left rim like this going in, which you know is wrong. It needs to be this way because it's front and rear. Or here, let's do it that way, front and rear. So that's where the correction notice came in, because you can see here that if we look at the left one, they're now telling you the left should be this way. So this is where the correction notice comes in when you're building. Again, it's weird, I've never seen that before. So we will go ahead and attach the left wheel. I actually love putting on these tires. And they look so cool. Love that. And of course we're going to have to do the other side, but it looks like that's almost popped in. I'll work my way all the way around. And there we go. So there we have the left rear tire. So I'll go ahead and put all of the other wheels into the tires, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, we're getting to the final steps here. So we're going to attach the rear wheels. So what we're going to do is, first of all, you can see that we're going to need to put a bearing in here. Now this is showing the bushing, and once again they're showing you the grease, but we are not going to be doing that because this is ball bearings, so we don't need to do that. So we're going to put in the other ball bearing on this end, which is in. We are then going to take the rear shaft and put in the pin. There it is. get it in even. Then this is going to go on there, so that's solid. And then we're going to take the left tire, make sure that it fits over that so that it's tight, right? So that it's in the right position. And then we'll take one of the flange nuts. And now we're going to screw this in. And there we go. So now we have our first wheel on the Beetle. So I will go ahead and put the rest of the tires on, and we'll move on to the next step. So there we go. All 4 tires are now on, and we can move on to working on the body.